Hey everyone! Today I'll be showing you how I made my Eternal Tiare from Sailor Moon Eternal. Let's go! Hi, my name is Glin. I'm a professional cosmaker and a cosplayer for over 10 years. I love cosplaying nostalgic characters, princesses, magical girls, and I make content about my projects and how I make them. So, when I started this project, I had already made this prop before for the World Cosplay Summit selections here in Portugal. However, while using it on stage, I noticed some things. The prop was a little wobbly and it didn't shine as much as I wanted it to. I also wanted to add a light up element to this prop so it will be more magical, and instead of doing changes to the prop I already had, I just decided to make a new one. Oh, and also I really needed it to be detachable so it would fit a suitcase to take it to Japan. That was also important. So I started with a blueprint. I printed it out to scale and used this drawing as a reference to cut my shapes. So for the heart and the hoop, I decided to use wood. This is because it's more sturdy. I can rest the prop on the floor without being scared of it breaking, and it's also sturdier during transportation. So this was the ideal choice for me, in my opinion. I cut and sanded each piece separately and then attached them using some screws and wood glue just to be sure it would be very secure. And then I applied some primer so it would be very smooth in texture and covered it in gold foil. And this was a nightmare. I did expect some mess, but this was insane. Please use a mask if you do this. There were gold flake particles flying around everywhere and it was very hard to clean off. And keep your pets out of the room if you do this because, you know, they're not wearing a mask either, so please be safe. And once the gold foil mess was done, I coated the prop with a clear varnish, not only for it to stay put for longer, but also to keep the gold foil from oxidizing, since over time it changes color to like a green hue. So with the varnish it's safer and it will keep it from doing that. Now the cone-shaped part of this prop was made using EVA foam, and I made different sized rings that I attached one top of each other, and then I shaved the sides with my X-Acto knife so it would be all smooth, and sanded the hell out of it. Oh, and this part was also covered in a sheet of glitter foam, and this was to serve as a base for me to glue the crystals to, because I was scared that if I painted this piece white with acrylic paints, or actually whatever paint, once I glued the crystals, I was very scared that if one for some reason gets caught on something and disattaches, it would peel off the paint, or even the glue could have a chemical reaction with the paint. And since I didn't want to be testing and wasting material, I just decided to go with something that I know works for me, and I covered in a glitter foam sheet and then use that as a base to glue each crystal on. And I'm sorry, I'm talking about gluing crystals, but I forgot to tell you, I decided to bedazzle the whole staff. But before we get there, let me explain how I made this staff detachable. So I used wooden dowels and PVC pipes. And what I did is I cut these wooden dowels in small pieces, kind of like this, and attached magnets to each end of these wooden dowels. And these little pieces slid into each PVC pipe, making that connection. So now I can attach and disattach very easily. And the connections are pretty strong since these magnets are really powerful. And then this staff was covered in the exact same glitter foam that I mentioned before, and for the same reasons. Now remember I mentioned I really wanted the prop to light up? So I made a hole on the wood base of the top part of the prop. I added this iridescent clear Christmas ornament on top of that hole so it covers it. And then I slid these fairy lights that I got. They were very cheap, I bought them online, and they come already with this tiny battery pack. And they light up super easy. They have 3 flash modes. and I cut a little hole on the EVA part that I mentioned before, the cone part, and this is basically hidden in there. And covering it, there's like these EVA foam wings that attach to the base with magnets, so it's very easy to turn it on, put it back into the little hole, and magnet the wings on top so it's covered and very magical. And now that the prop is ready, turns out it's not, because I decided to fully bedazzle it and cover it in thousands and thousands of crystals. It was crazy the amount of time it took. However, it was really relaxing, and I do have some tips if you want to bedazzle a prop yourself, but here's how it went. So I started by using the tried and true method of using E6000 glue to attach all these crystals, and these are clear AB crystals made with resin, so they're very lightweight. And then I realized that the smell was really strong, the glue dried really fast, and I was going to need like 3 bottles of glue to do this. So that's when I had an idea. I just thought it would be so much easier if this glue had a cover that I could just remove as I'm gluing the crystals, you know, so it doesn't dry. And then I remembered double-sided tape is a thing. So I tested it and it really worked very, very well. The only thing is this glue is not the strongest, so you do need to seal it after so no crystal pops. And that's exactly what I did. The same varnish that I told you I used before for the gold foiled parts, I use it here. It's no difference because it's clear, and now the stones are super secure, and it even changed the texture. It's more smooth now, so when holding it, it's more comfortable on the hands as well. Now it's time to talk about the crystal. And this was a new technique for me. It was the first time that I 3D printed something for cosplay. I was so lucky to be gifted a 3D printer by my friend Mafalda, and this came at the perfect time. She was such an angel to me because I was struggling to find a crystal that had the perfect size and shape for this project. And now with the 3D printer, my options are limitless. So I used Blender to design the crystal the way I wanted it, and I used some official references to make the shape very accurate. And after a lot of tests, I printed this crystal with clear PLA filament, and I printed this crystal in 3 different pieces so that it would be easier to sand in between layers. And after sanding these pieces, I used some clear UV resin. I used some transfer nail foils that are holographic and give it really that crystal look. I used pretty much the same method for the bottom part of the staff. I also 3D modeled it on Blender, printed it out, and then coated with gold foil, just like for the top of the prop. And since this part is basically the end of the staff, needs to be very, very sturdy, I gave it a couple more layers of resin just to make sure it's not going anywhere, it's super strong, it's not breaking, and I can just rest the prop on top of it and it will be safe. I hand sculpted some details with foam clay that later I covered also with gold foil. And with this, the prop is done. It's so shiny, so very magical. I'm so happy with the result, and it's very sturdy. Now that it's made of sturdy materials, I feel so much safer on stage, and I can just twirl it around, put it on the floor without being worried about it breaking. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing this channel or even following me on my social media. I do share a lot of my work in progress of these costumes that I'm working on, and I love sharing what I know with everyone, so I hope to see you there. And as always, if you have any question about this project or the materials I use, where I got them from, whatever it is, please leave them in the comments and I will answer you as fast as I can. With that being said, it's time for me to go. See you next time. Bye!